Hi guys, Scott Woodward with you to talk about the big 2014 Grand Final this Sunday. And look, we said last week whoever won the match between South Sydney and the Roosters would likely win this week's Grand Final, and it certainly has panned out that way. They look the best of good things, the Rabbitohs. Can they break a 42-year drought and go on and win the Grand Final, or can the Bulldogs be the first team outside the top four this century to win the Grand Final? I don't think so. Teams don't win the Grand Final outside the top four for a very good reason. And when we have a look at the Bulldogs and how they've got there, it's quite amazing to think that they are in the Grand Final. And congratulations to Des Hasler for getting this team in the Grand Final. I think it's an amazing coaching performance to get them this far. When you look back and see their last 12 games, and only once in those last 12 games have they actually scored more than a try in 11 out of those 12 games. That's in the second half. That is quite an amazing stat. To think that a team struggles to score any points at all in the last 40 minutes of a game in 11 of their last 12 games and has still made the Grand Final, it is quite a stunning statistic if you look at that and if you look at past years and how teams have made the Grand Final. But look, they're in the Grand Final, so there's only two teams and there's only going to be one winner. So we have to say that they've got a shot, and we'll talk about how they can possibly win this game in a few seconds. I just want to touch a little bit on South Sydney first. They've got 6 new faces in this lineup from the team that went around last year that was very disappointing. And significantly, the back line is completely new, and it's an outstanding back line. It's actually not completely new. Greg Inglis is in the side, obviously, but Alex Johnson, Dylan Walker, Kira Som, and obviously the veteran Lottie Takiri, who keeps them all together, and he's just continued on his great form. He hasn't been shown up in the last couple of weeks in defence, but it is a clear weakness that he's got. I'm very glad to see that Ben Teo is starting this week. He should have started last week, in my opinion. Kyle Turner has dropped back to the bench. I thought he missed a very bad tackle last week, Kyle Turner. An interesting point for this match is Greg Inglis was outstanding last week in scoring 2 tries, but I have to say he also conceded 3 tries. So he conceded 3 tries and he got 2. So for his standards, it wasn't a vintage Greg Inglis game. So I'd like to think that he can actually do better. I guess every man and his dog knew that Sam Burgess would have a big game last week, and he didn't let anybody down. His statistics were outstanding, and he did win the man of the match. But let me say they were no more outstanding than his brother, Tom Burgess. Tom Burgess doesn't get any headlines. It's normally George or Sam, but Tom Burgess was out of this world last week, and he looks as though he's a real candidate to step into Sam's shoes when Sam goes to rugby union at the conclusion of this game. He's certainly in the top 10 prop forwards in the world, in my opinion, Tom Burgess, and joins his brother George in that category. What an outstanding family it is. I want to talk just a little bit about the Bulldogs for a second. They actually made 38 tackles more than Penrith last week. Their defence on the line particularly was out of this world. It's as good a defence as I've seen, and that's why they have a flukish chance of winning this game. Just talk a little bit about the prices. The Bulldogs only had 47% possession last week, but I have to say Penrith really didn't look likely to score, and Penrith are a very good attacking team who can put points on, but they were just rock solid, the Bulldogs. And if they can happen to fluke an early try and put up that rock-solid defence and get into a grind, they have shown during the year that they can win close games. They've already won 5 games this year by 1 point, and they've won another 5 by under a converted try. So they know how to win the close games, and that is their only hope, and that's what they'll try and do. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, how I think they can do that in just a second. I want to talk about the hookers. Obviously, the Rabbitohs have lost their hooker and the Bulldogs have lost their hooker. I think the Rabbitohs cover their lost hooker much better. Isaac Luke is a world-class hooker, probably the 2nd or 3rd best hooker in the world, so you might think that's going to be hard to replace. But I have to say, Afasai Okorosu, I think, is a genuine first grader, and Penrith didn't buy him for fun. They don't make too many mistakes in their recruitment, Penrith, and they've got him on board, and I think he's an absolute gun, and I think he will serve them very well in place of Isaac. And look, what I think will happen, look, he hasn't hasn't done much running in the last 8 weeks, so he has to be underdone, and I don't know if he will start or come off the bench, but whatever happens, I think he will share the hooking duties with Luke Carey, who is slotted in to play 6, and he's been doing a great job there in recent weeks. And I think when Luke Carey comes in and plays a bit of 9, John Sutton will go in and play his favoured position at 6, which will suit the Rabbitohs perfectly. And this is going to allow a class back rower like Chris McQueen to get more minutes. And Chris has got good speed, he's a good defender, and he's probably the best second rower in the air for jumping up and taking bombs. He's outstanding. So while certainly they're weakened, they're actually strengthened in another area. And as I said, they cover Luke very, very well. Unlike the Bulldogs, who don't have a good succession plan for their hooker, I'm not quite sure what Des is going to do. I think he'll probably go with Moses Mbai, and he may share that with another back rower, or he may elect to put Rennie Matua on the bench and start with Rennie for his defence. He's a much bigger man than Moses Mbai, and he's also got some skill, got a very good offload. It doesn't matter what they do, they're not going to get the same service that they got from Ennis, but on an upside, both Mbai and Matua are more dangerous with the ball than what Ennis was. And if the Bulldogs are going to win this game, they simply have to score some points. And so they've probably got more chance of scoring points without Ennis than what they have with Ennis, as silly as what that might sound. And as far as captaincy is concerned, I think we all know that the guy that gives the orders is James Graham in the Bulldogs. So they won't be lacking in leadership as far as that's concerned. So while both sides are certainly down because they're two hookers, I think the Rabbitohs cover much better than what the Bulldogs do. And strangely, since Isaac Luke failed in his appeal on Tuesday night to get off, the Bulldogs have actually firmed in, which I find strange. I don't think anyone expected him to get off. I always thought that they'd be around this price, and all that's really happened is a correction. BetEasy, Australia's only major corporate bookmaker that's owned by an Australian, and Matt Tripp, have got the Rabbitohs at 134 and the Bulldogs top odds now at 335, and those prices will probably change a little bit through the week. I might just point out, if you have a look down below on the website, exclusive to BetEasy and Champion Picks is a free $700 bet. You put in $700 and they give you another $700 or any part of $700. It's the best deal going around, and you can grab that up until this Sunday down on the link below. Just click it and go through, join up, and you can get a free $700. Outstanding value. I can talk about these two teams a fair bit, but Andrew Johns is the best player I've ever seen play the game, and I think he's the smartest guy in terms of talking about a game that I've ever listened to, and I respect what he says highly. And I might just quote what he said on the Sunday Footy show about South Sydney when they played on Saturday night. He said, "Souths were absolutely awesome. I think it is the best performance of the year by Souths or any team. Their forward pack was absolutely brutal. They assaulted the Roosters on the advantage line and totally dominated the pack." You can't get any clearer than that, and I can't agree any more with that. We're talking about the Roosters here. It's one of the biggest and most brutal packs in the competition, and they made them look second rate. Now, having said that, the Bulldogs pack is every bit as strong and every bit as big, so it's going to be similar, but the Bulldogs haven't got the scoring options that South Sydney have got. They've got scoring options all over the park, and they've got pace all over the park. We've talked about their forwards, we've talked about their halves, and the back line. If I'm going to talk about the Bulldogs, I certainly like their two centres, Josh Morris and Tim Laffey. It's probably the two best defensive centres in the NRL, and both representative class centres, and no doubt about that. Corey Thompson, he's a little bit short, but he's certainly very hard to contain. Mitch Brown, I think, is out of place in first grade on the wing. Sam Perrott, I think, given his God-given talent, is doing a wonderful job at fullback, but he certainly wouldn't have been my selection for fullback, but I certainly can't knock how he's going. Trent Hodgkinson is certainly playing injured. Having said that, he's got limited attacking ability anyway. Wonderful goal kicker, although he wasn't kicking last week. Tim Laffey was. So if he can't kick again this week, that's a massive loss for the Bulldogs, because he's a freak at kicking goals from the sideline. And if you're going to be beating the Rabbitohs, you want to be getting them in sixes and not fours. Josh Reynolds, I really think the best hope for the Bulldogs to win this grand final is for Josh Reynolds to play 9 and Moses Mbai to play 6. Only because when he runs out from dummy half, he will worry South Sydney. And if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to worry them. And I think if no one's going to be doing anything scary out of 9, South will be very, very comfortable and they'll be very happy and they'll get into their rhythm and then you'll see the real Rabbitohs. And this may very well be a messy grand final. But if that doesn't happen and it can stay in a grind, it'll be a Bulldogs rough chance of winning this game. Look, they're two forwards, Tolman and Graham. Graham is one of the best pommy front rowers I've ever seen. Tolman is just as honest as it comes, always gets over 100 metres every week. The back rowers are outstanding. Josh Jackson, Tony Williams improved his defence markedly last week, but his attack has been terrific. He's always dangerous with the ball, and Greg Eastwood is a big-time player. You watch his face when he has the ball and how hard he tries, as though it's his last run on this earth, and he's the sort of guy you want to go into a battle with, Greg Eastwood. It's an outstanding big bench. Tim Brown, Dale Finucane, we have the very, very promising David Clemmer and Frank Pritchard, the classy Frank Pritchard, who is getting fitter every week. It's an outstanding back line. It's an outstanding forward pack, I should say, and it's an even better bench. They're certainly not lacking anything as far as South Sydney is concerned there. Where South Sydney have the big edge is very similar to last week. Greg Inglis versus Sam Perrott, a monumental advantage there. I think Luke Keary and Adam Reynolds is a better combination than Josh Reynolds and Trent Hodgkinson, which is a funny statement given that's the New South Wales 6 and 7. But I think that Luke Keary and Josh Reynolds have a better kicking game, and I think that they're more selective in what they do when they run and when they pass and when they kick. George Burgess, I've already talked about him, world-class prop forward. Dave Tyrrell, out of place in first grade in my opinion. I've got no idea how he starts in place of Tom Burgess, beyond my comprehension, but obviously he's the coach's favourite. Ben Teo was simply outstanding last week, and another guy who you want in your team. He's going to be a loss to rugby league, there's no doubt about that. John Sutton was virtually playing in a centre position last week, even though he had number 12 on his shirt, and I'm sure he'll play a little bit of 6 on Sunday as well. But his work rate, providing the Rabbitohs are on the front foot, he's not having to work so hard as what he has done when they're under the pump. And obviously the Bulldogs will try and run at John Sutton and weaken him, there's no doubt about that. If we look at the bench, Jason Clark, as honest as the day is long, I love this guy. He hasn't got a lot of God-given talent, but he just gives everything. Kyle Turner, very promising. He's clearly not 100%, and he has got some head knock concerns. Chris McQueen, we've talked about, and Tom Burgess, certainly one of the best bench guys you'd ever want to see, and I wouldn't be surprised if he actually does start alongside of his brother. Both Tom and George starting. That's certainly what I would do. They've got to get on top of this Bulldog forward pack very, very early and set up a lead. And if they do that, they know that the Bulldogs are almost incapable of scoring more than one try in the second half. They've certainly shown that in their last 12 games. Everything points to a Bulldogs victory to me. I think... let me reword that. Everything points to a Rabbitohs victory to me. I think the Bulldogs are very lucky to be in the grand final. They were lucky that they got on the, if you like, weak side of the draw. The Rabbitohs had all the good teams on their side of the draw, North Queensland, Roosters, etc. The Bulldogs struck some good teams at very good times. A very weakened Manly team, and obviously they played Penrith last week, who is probably just a year too early for Penrith. So they find themselves in the grand final. They've got there luckily, but they've got there. So because of that simple fact, they have to be a chance. Look, I can't be on them. I'd rather be laying them than backing them. Our members are on the Rabbitohs at 274 already. We'll probably come up with a few exotic bets through the week when I have a look at the final teams and look at some training through the week. But just before I sign off, thanks for your support. We've had another very profitable year. That's 9 out of 10 now that we've been profitable. And if you want to have a bet in the grand final, don't forget that link down below. It's a free $700 bet. You put in 700 and you get a free 700. Your total balance goes to 1400. It's exclusive to Champion Picks until this Sunday only. So you're mad if you don't get it. It's money for jam. So all the very best. I hope you enjoy this great day, and I'll look forward to talking to you for the Four Nations in a couple of weeks' time. Cheers.